On December 16th, 1773, members of the Sons of Liberty took to Boston Harbor, dumping 342 chests of British East India Company tea into the icy waters. This was not just an act of protest. No, it was an act of calculated rebellion against Britain's Tea Act. What happened next? We're going to talk all about it. Welcome back, history friends, to Historical USA. I am your host, historian Lisa Weekland, and here we discover the people, places, and events that made America. Now, if you did not catch last week's episode, we went all in talking about the Boston Tea Party. This week, we are deep diving into the aftermath of that fateful night. Now let's start with the tea ships themselves, the Dartmouth, the Eleanor, and the Beaver. Now the Dartmouth and the Beaver were owned by the Roach family, and the Eleanor was owned by a Boston merchant named John Rowe. And for a while, they were stuck in limbo in Boston Harbor, but eventually were free to leave and return to England. Unfortunately, their association with the Boston Tea Party would hamper business for their owners, as many loyalists and British merchants really did not want to associate themselves with the Boston Tea Party ships. And with that, it's pretty obvious that the Boston Tea Party was a very polarizing event in American history. To some colonists, it was a rallying cry for liberty, a necessary blow against tyranny, but not everyone celebrated. See, conservative voices even feared it might undermine the legitimacy of their protests. Resistance must be thoughtful, some argued. After all, chaos serves no cause. John Adams himself would write, quote, "This destruction of the tea is so bold, so daring, so firm, intrepid, and inflexible, and it must have important consequences," end quote. Though he admired the Tea Party's audacity, he knew that the stakes were high. In Britain, the reaction was swift and it was severe. King George III famously declared, quote, "The die is now cast. The colonies must either submit or triumph." See, his government viewed this as an outright treason and resolved to bring the colonies to heel. Now, meanwhile, Benjamin Franklin, who was in England acting as a sort of representative for several different colonies, actually found himself in some pretty hot water. He was publicly scolded in Parliament, enduring very sharp criticism for his perceived roles. I mean, it was a public humiliation trial for Benjamin Franklin. Not only did he have to go in front of the Privy Council, but the Privy Council invited some of the top echelon in the King's Court to witness scolding and humiliation of Franklin. But Franklin, though ever pragmatic, remained stoic. He even offered to pay for the tea in an effort to de-escalate the tensions. His gesture, however, was rebuffed. The Boston Tea Party rippled through the minds of the founding fathers. George Washington, for instance, disapproved of the destruction of the property. He wrote, quote, "Though Boston's actions may inspire the people, I cannot but lament the destruction of property. Such acts will provoke Britain and unite them against us." See, Washington believed resistance should be measured and, above all, lawful. John Adams, though, on the other hand, found the Tea Party bold and exhilarating. It reflected the revolutionary spirit he admired, though he recognized the risks of retaliation. Their differing views exemplify the complexities of colonial leadership. John Adams, though, would write to his friend James Warren the next day after the Tea Party, quote, The people have passed the river and cut away the bridge. Last night, 3 cargoes of tea were emptied into the harbor. This is the grandest event which has ever happened since the controversy with Britain opened. Hello, history friends. I am so excited to announce that we have partnered with Classical Learner. I am a historian, but more importantly, I am a homeschooling mother. Now, I get questions all the time from other homeschool parents and other parents concerned they might not be teaching their children enough social studies or civics or history. Classical Learner is a great way to help your child in all of those areas. Their children's book series, Cubs to Bears, will help your children understand things like what is the First Amendment, what is the Second Amendment, what is the Federal Reserve. They will teach your children things like critical thinking and health and nutrition. One thing that I'm really excited is they are also now rolling out historical works. Their first is George Washington by Ferdinand Schmidt that was originally published in 1911. Now, this book tells the story of George Washington from his upbringing to his ambitions to his ascension as the father of a new nation. It provides a really unique insight into the grievances of the American colonists and the issues they had with England and the culture that made 1776 possible. This is part of Classical Learner's mission to take lost, unpolitically correct history and make it available to the public. And you can get 10% off of any of these products when you use the coupon code HistoricalUSA. You can visit the link down below in the description bar if you are interested in taking a look at some of their children's books and some of these great historical works. Now back to the video. Britain's response, as I said, came swiftly. Parliament enacted a series of punitive measures known as the Coercive Acts, or the Intolerable Acts as deemed by the colonists. Now, these laws aimed to punish Boston and quell rebellion. The Boston Port Act closed Boston Harbor until the tea was paid for. The Massachusetts Government Act revoked the colony's charter and imposed stricter control. The Administration of Justice Act allowed British officials accused of crimes to be tried not in Boston, but in England. And the Quartering Act, which required colonists to house British troops. And the effects of these acts were devastating. See, Boston was very reliant on its port. Having it closed for any length of time would cause the city of Boston and the communities surrounding her to suffer economically. But what ended up happening was that these acts would backfire. Instead of quelling rebellion, it united the colonists further, not divided them. Supplies poured into Boston from other colonies in a show of solidarity. The Virginia House of Burgess cried, "Our brethren of Boston are suffering under the hand of tyranny." It is this shared outrage that would lay the groundwork for the First Continental Congress. The Boston Tea Party set off a chain of events, really, that would propel the colonies towards revolution. It showed the power of bold action, but also the importance of unity and strategic resistance. Thank you guys so much for joining me on another episode of Historical USA. This one's a little shorter than most, I will admit, but I wanted to share with you guys the fallout from such an event like this. Now, don't forget to subscribe and to share this video. That helps me out so much. You have no idea. We are so close to 10,000 subscribers, so please share with a friend, and we will see you next time as we continue down this road to revolution.